Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. I think this is our last episode in January talking about community and connection. My name is Amy Chang, and I'm a health coach here with Healthy Life, Health and Wellness Coaching. Why talk about community and connection in January where everybody else is talking about motivation and willpower and how it relates to resolutions? Well, because your resolutions will stick a little bit more when you feel like you belong, when you love yourself a little bit more, and you love others a little bit more. So that's why I chose to do this specific batch, this theme for the month, connection and community. The other reason I chose to do this is because, we're just starting a women's coaching group. And when I looked in December of whether or not I wanted to do another women's coaching group this year, I checked out well, why do it? I always ask myself that, by the way. Whenever I am trying to decide if I want to continue doing something or start something new, well, why do it? I ask that to my clients too sometimes. They say, I need to exercise. I'm like, why? Why would you want to do that? And just get some clarity around what really works about that? So when I looked at what really works about the women's coaching group as a service that Healthy Life, Health and Wellness Coaching provides for women in the community, I looked at it provides an opportunity to have a connection, a specific type of connection with a specific community that I don't see happening without intention in our lives. And we started thinking about, what is connectivity and community, and how does that arrive? And over the past month, we've talked about, the first way to be connected to someone is to just acknowledge that they're a human being. It's the nod, it's the wave, it's the morning, right? You might not know their name or who they are or where they live, but you see them on your walk every day. You might never see them again. You might be in a subway. It's just acknowledging that other human being, that we're all part of the same group of human beings. And then there's this broader, just a very common, broad connection. You're in my same class. You live in my dorm. We go to church together. And then there's a more specific connectedness. We're in the same CrossFit class. We're in the same knitting circle. We play poker every Thursday. And then there is an intentional, intimate relationship. Some of these intentional, intimate relationships sort of seed from that Thursday night poker game or that, weekly golf outing. But sometimes they don't. And I think for me, I've had a really unique opportunity in that I had a geographic move to a place that I didn't know anyone. I had an opportunity to become single again. And I had an opportunity to be an empty nester. So many of my built-in communities were gone. And that left me really disconnected and communityless. And it also created a vacuum of space where I could now choose. I didn't have the broad commonalities of, I went to high school with her. I didn't have the more specific, our husbands worked together. I got to choose all new communities. And I got to feel the impact of each different way of connecting with people. I got to feel how it feels when I'm acknowledging someone I don't know or they're acknowledging me. How it feels when I go to a church and they notice when I'm not on my designated seat. I got to feel how it feels when I commit to a certain class at the gym and I know who's going to be there and I know how they're going to move and I know, which one of us is going to win. And I got to feel how it feels when I mindfully, intentionally create deeper connections that have a whole host of vulnerable, scary pieces of connectivity. And it's my favorite kind, an intentional, intimate relationship. And so here on this last week of January, we're going to talk about intentional, intimate relationships and how they show up in your life or not. And I would invite you to begin looking at your relationships. If you haven't listened to the rest of the podcasts, you can go back. They're pretty quick little podcasts, and look at all the different types of connectivity and look at what you have in your life and where you might want to put more effort in to really have a really full sense of really diverse basket of community for yourself and your health. Okay. So, intentional, intimate relationships. I wrote things down because it's a lot. Intimate. At first, I want to tell you about my friend Christine. So, my friend Christine, we met each other at just a specific interest group that we attended, and so we had the same interest and we just met there. But it didn't take long for us to start going to breakfast. And we went to breakfast in a big group of us, we'd go and we'd do our thing and then we'd all go to breakfast, which was lovely. And one day the conversation shifted. And Christine and I decided that we would call each other every day. Really, because I had a hole in my community and she had a hole in her community, a need that was not being filled in our current sets of community. And that hole was, when I'm having a bad day, I don't know who to call. When you have different communities, like, well, I go to church with her, but we're not talking about, hey, I'm having a really bad day and I don't want to get out of bed. We're not having those conversations. Then who do you call? Who do you call when, you're all by yourself in your house? And how do you meet that need? How do you take responsibility for meeting that need for yourself? So Christine and I decided that since she had a hole where, like, if it's a bad day, I don't really feel comfortable and I'm not practiced at calling anyone, and I had a hole that was similar, that we were going to call each other every day. And we were very intentional about these calls. And this is what we did. We agreed that every day we would call each other. And if we did not want to pick up, we did not have to pick up. If the person didn't pick up, we were not going to make up a story about, like, I'm bothering them, or I shouldn't have called, or she's mad at me, or any of those stories. If we wanted to leave a voicemail, we would leave a voicemail. If we wanted to call back later, we would call back later. But if we didn't want to leave a voicemail, we wouldn't. And if we didn't want to return the call, we wouldn't. The practice that was a very intentional practice for both of us was learn to pick up the phone every day to that one person, to intentionally build an intimate relationship so that when the bad days hit, the phone doesn't feel so heavy. And we've done that. We've done that for 2 years now. And we have created this very intentional, very intimate relationship between the two of us. Now, I don't see her that often. She lives about 35 minutes from me or so. And every quarter we put something on the calendar so that we can grab a breakfast or have a massage or in some way be in each other's presence. But the relationship we've developed has been a very intentional relationship. Now I want to tell you about these calls, because that's part of an intentional, intimate relationship. The calls are not about, hey, what are you doing today? What are you making for dinner? What are you getting at Walmart? The calls are about, how are you today? What's in your workday that you're really excited about? What's in your workday that you're dreading? What's the mental load for you right now? How are the holidays really? What's got you stuck? What are you totally celebrating because it's awesome and I need to celebrate with you? Those were the conversations we had. And inside those conversations lies a few things that are so important to these intentional, intimate relationships. These are the relationships and the conversations inside these relationships that grow us and that grow us together inside that relationship. These conversations had accountability. They weren't just for venting, although some of them have been. They weren't just for to-do lists, although some of them have been. They were for, you sound really resentful right now. What's going on? They had accountability. They also had a lot of grace. I don't think a conversation goes by inside that relationship where one of us doesn't say to the other one of us, you're doing the best you can and it'll work out. That's a really important component of this very vulnerable, authentic relationship. We also practice detaching with love. There have been plenty of times that I have gotten this one area of my life that just won't budge. And what it feels like to me is, ugh, I don't know what to do with this. This thing is so irritating. This thing is so frustrating. But what it sounds like to Christine when she listens is, Amy's complaining about that thing again. I don't know when Amy's going to change her situation, but I do know that Amy is stuck in that. I'm not going to tell Amy what to do. I'm not going to wreck my brain over 14 different solutions that Amy should try. I'm not going to passive aggressively suggest that Amy should try something to change that situation. I'm going to let Amy have whatever she's having. Now, how many conversations in your day do you have with a person who is detached from whether or not you solve whatever problem you've complained about for the 14th time? And they love you, even if you're going to complain about it for the 15th and 16th time? That's a relationship that can truly have the spaciousness in it for you to grow, especially when you throw a little accountability in there. These conversations that we have inside this relationship are inspiring and inspired. I can't tell you how many days one of us walks away and says, wow, thank you for that conversation. I needed to have a good cry. or thank you for that conversation. I'd kind of gotten into victim mode and I needed an invitation to get out of there. Inspired and inspiring. And do you know that that's who you are? Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. You are inspired and inspiring. And that happens a lot more in these intentional, intimate conversations and relationships and communities than it does in like the we go to church and I see you on Sunday and I know where you sit communities. The other big core that I find in these intentional, intimate relationships is that they're built on trust and safety. You know what? And I'm going to throw in some clarity there too. Because with intentionality, clarity is a prerequisite. If you're intentionally creating something, typically, I would think you have some clarity around why you're creating it, what you want, how you want it to function, what you think the outcome is going to be. You might not know what the outcome is going to be, but what you think the outcome is going to be. This is a different type of community. And we likely don't have that many connections in our life that are this kind of community bond, this kind of belonging. I bring this up because I think before I had all my opportunities for growth, all my transitions into reset, I didn't know I was missing this, and I didn't have it in my life. And I would bet the farm that there are several of you who are busy. I won't say self-absorbed because I think that might hurt your feelings. But I'll say very attached to the to-do list. I know I have been. Or attached to the stress, or attached to the worry or the anxiety, attached to productivity, getting everything done just right. That we don't know that we don't have these relationships. And they make a difference. It allows us to let go. These relationships allow us to let go of being perfect, of being right, of looking good, of being strong, of people pleasing, of being cool. All those coping mechanisms and strategies of fitting in that sometimes are alive and well in our other communities, they get left behind in intentional, intimate relationships. I know I've had plenty of relationships that I love, enjoy, are fun, am comforted by, know what to expect, and they are not intentional, intimate relationships that hold me accountable, help me become who I really want to be, and inspire other people in the meantime. So I'd invite you now, just like I've invited you at every other podcast this month, get your piece of paper and look and see, what intentional, intimate relationship do you have? It might be with your spouse. You might have a relationship with your spouse that's not intentionally intimate. It's more just like we've got something in common, i.e., we got married, we've spent our lives together, and we got kids. But there's no vulnerability there. There's no accountability there. There's no clarity there. There's no intentionality on what you're building together and what you're building, individually, side by side. So this is your invitation to look and see where those relationships are and if they're missing. And if you've got them, call that person right now and tell them how much you value the uniqueness that intentional, intimate relations bring. It's such an integral part of our healing and moving forward to really being thriving in our lives. Intentional, intimate relationships don't happen in survival, baby. They happen when we're living bigger. And that's what I'm all about. And that is why I do the women's group. I do the women's group coaching because it creates a planned, calendared, intentionally intimate setting where people can grow, people can inspire each other and be inspired by each other. Yeah. Gosh, that's the good stuff in life, right? If you want to know more about the women's group, or if you want to know more just about what relationships look like and where yours are, please feel free to reach out to me. The consultation is free, and I'm sure that just having one intentional conversation with a coach can bring you a lot of clarity on what your next steps are. I love you, and I hope you're having a great month of January, and we'll see you in February on Healthy AF.